Hello and welcome to the Game Forum. My name is Lindsay. This week I'm going to be doing a review on Superliminal for the PlayStation 4. So first off, Superliminal is a puzzle game, and on face value it might appear very similar to something like Portal or one of the other more popular puzzle games. Although it's a good deal shorter, it only took me about 2 hours to go through the whole campaign the first time, and after learning the puzzles, I'm sure I could get that time under an hour for a second playthrough. That being said, its price is not all that high either, being around $20. Although for a 2 hour game, I definitely feel like it's a bit overpriced. It should be a little bit lower than that. So getting into the graphics of the game are okay. They're about par. They're not terrible and they're not great, but they're passable. I really like the first part of the game where you start off in essentially a very similar situation to Portal, where you're going through research laboratories, but they end up telling you that you're actually inside your own dream, almost like Inception. But in this, it allows you to play with physics and perspective a little, which is really cool. You can essentially take an object and hold it up, and essentially once you drop it, it ends up becoming the size based on the perspective from which you view it at. So for example, if you were to pick up a dice and hold it up close to yourself, it would look bigger compared to everything else behind it. Once you drop it, it actually maintains the size from your perspective. This is really cool, and I haven't really seen any game do something like this before. Being able to shift perspective on objects like this was a lot of fun, and it really took you a little bit of time to get used to and figure out exactly how you could orient the objects to get everything the way you wanted it to do. The game, however, does not stop at this as it continues to add on new elements throughout the game. The next big element it adds in is cloning, essentially being able to take one object and split it into multiple objects. Each one gets progressively smaller. This bit was okay, I guess, but I definitely liked the perspective shifting more than the cloning aspect. They then continue adding in new elements where if you hold your perspective just right, you can line items up on a wall to pull an object out of the wall and then shift its perspective. And then they start allowing you to use all these three elements together. I really liked this. This was a really cool element, although a couple of the puzzles were not very well communicated to the player, I don't feel. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I have two puzzles for examples. One was a puzzle running down a hallway. I didn't even really realize this was a puzzle, although on later inspection, I guess it is. I just didn't seem to catch it on the first time, but I was still able to get past it without too long a wait. But I feel like this puzzle wasn't very well communicated. I felt like at this point it was much more of a dream sequence than a puzzle. The second one, which I found almost infuriating, was the apple puzzle. If you're playing this game, you'll probably know exactly which puzzle I'm talking about. There's essentially a giant apple in a room, and on the other side is a button you have to try and put the apple onto. You can't move the apple, you can only clone it, and there's a fan in the middle of the room that prevents you from cloning the apple up to the button. Any logical thing would dictate you'd have to try and string the apple over to the button. This, however, was not the case. There is no logical solution for this. You have to think a bit illogically to try and figure this one out. I typically really enjoy puzzle games and like trying to figure it out. However, this is one of the rare occasions where I had to look up something online to figure out the solution. And once I did, it was kind of a gut punch. It didn't really feel that great a solution to me. It felt kind of cheap. And definitely not something I would have thought of. It's not logical at all. But I guess it flows with the game. So as you continue playing the game continues to warp and get a little trippy as the dream sequences start kicking in more and more and more, messing with your perspective, shifting with colors, and just overall becoming much more of a dream state game than your standard going through different rooms game. This led for some really cool effects, and the game definitely does not hold your hand for any of the puzzles, which I do appreciate. So overall, it was a fun puzzle game. I enjoyed it. I do wish it was a bit longer. It did feel short, especially for its price tag. It'd be one I would recommend picking up on sale for a cheaper price. Maybe $5 to $10 would feel about justified. The game typically does not hold your hand and pretty well forces you to figure it out. I appreciate this. However, there were 2 levels that just didn't seem to communicate very well to the player what they were trying to accomplish, one of which was slightly infuriating. And the last bit can get really trippy, definitely making you think outside of the box. Tell me what you think about Superliminal in the comments down below. And until next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.